Welcome to Body Hack and Build a Better You, the podcast where we unlock the secret to living a longer, healthier life and create a bloom zone in our life and within our family. I'm your host, Michaela Morell, and I'm here to provide you with the tools and knowledge to empower you to build a better you, one essential building block at a time. In today's episode, we're continuing our deep dive into the fascinating world of fatty acid, especially DGLA, or Dihomo-Linolenic Acid. If you're ever wondering how your body's fatty acid balance influences inflammation, hormone production, and overall health, you're in the right place. We'll unpack the critical role of DGLA, why testing it matters, and how high or low levels can signal deeper health concerns. We'll also explore how poor liver function, overlooked enzyme issues, and the healthcare system's blind spot can impact the vital fatty acid. Let's dive in. I want to remind you that this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Read the disclaimer in the show notes, and I remind you to always consult your healthcare provider if you plan to make any dietary changes. There are so many people out there that are going to the doctors and they're trying to figure out what is wrong with their health. And they're getting more and more frustrated because they're not feeling great, but the lab work the doctors are running is usually looking good. It looks like average blood work. And it can be very frustrating for people that are wanting to be healthy. They are doing so much for their health. They're working out, they're eating clean foods, they're mainly cooking it from scratch, and they feel like they should have a body that is responding better to what they're doing, and they're still feeling at loss and really frustrated. So today's episode, I want to talk about a fatty acid that I haven't really spent any time in this podcast to talk about yet. It had been a lot of focus on omega-6 and omega-3s, but today I want to focus on DGLA. And I want to explain a couple of things regarding this fatty acid. And the reason why I want to dig into this topic more is because it is something that people can measure in their house. It is accessible, but yet no one is educating about it. So what is DGLA? It is a type of omega-6 fatty acid. It's part of the family of essential fats that your body cannot produce on its own, meaning you must get them through your diet. But here's where it gets interesting, because DGLA is considered a mediator in your body. It sits at a crossroad in the metabolic pathway of omega-6 fatty acid and can be converted into two very different types of compounds. The compounds they can be converted into, they're either anti-inflammatory compounds that help your body to heal, or they're pro-inflammatory compounds that drives inflammation if not it's properly regulated. This dual nature makes DGLA incredibly important. When in balance, it plays a positive role in controlling inflammation, maintaining skin health, supporting immunity, and even influence hormone production. However, if your DGLA levels are too high or too low, it can signal underlying imbalances in your body that need to be addressed. So that is why we need to look at this fatty acid, understand it, measure, and then making sure that we're having a good balance. But before we start talking about how it affects our health, let's just look at why DGLA is important. So I started touching on that it's very important for the inflammation regulation in the body. I see a lot of people with autoimmune diseases coming in and having too high levels of DGLA. And it's important to understand that DGLA can transform into prostaglandins, the PGE1, which are anti-inflammatory molecules that help calm your body's responses to stress or injury. And this is great news if you're dealing with chronic inflammation, arthritis, or other inflammatory conditions, but we shouldn't have too much of it. We need to have sufficient enough levels, but we don't want it to be too high or too low. And I often see very high levels of this when people are struggling with a lot of chronic issues. The second thing is very important for is the skin health. It plays a big role in skin hydration and elasticity. So if you have conditions like eczema or psoriasis, DGLA could be a missing link in your treatment strategies. I don't know if you're struggling today with any of these things, if your provider have ever ordered a blood work to measure your DGLA levels. The third thing it's very important for is immunity and hormonal health, because DGLA contributes to proper function of your immune system and the production of hormones. A deficiency or imbalance here can lead to you feeling more tired and struggle with fatigue, immune dysfunction, or hormonal imbalances. It can be imbalances like having more PMS, having issues with your menstrual cycle, and thyroid issues and insulin. And there is a lot of hormones that are helping us every single day that can be affected by the DGLA. And the fourth thing it's very important for is disease prevention. There are a lot of research out there, and I encourage you to go to Google Scholar again, just research DGLA on your own. But there is a lot of research suggesting that balanced DGLA levels may reduce the risk for chronic diseases such as heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and even some cancers. And if you go to Google Scholar and you search, you will be able to find, for example, an article about DGLA inhibiting several key cellular processes associated with atherosclerosis. And what this scientific report I'm sitting in front of me that you find on Google Scholar, you find it on Science Direct actually. They're looking at how it helps with removing the plaque in your uterus and how that it can play a big role in that. And this study was very positive, expressing how DGLA could play a big role in the prevention and treatment of atherosclerosis. So it is worth looking into this if you're struggling with any heart conditions. And what is so fascinating is also that it seems that it's regulating and changing epigenetics, which is how the DNA is expressing itself, and also how the energy production in the mitochondria is improved. So there is a lot of things to read into about DGLA. So when we do measure this fatty acid that is essential, there are a lot of blood work showing that it's either too low or too high. And I want to address a little bit more about what could it be? Why would the reason for it to be too high? And one reason is dietary imbalances, that you're simply eating way too much omega-6. That would be diets that are filled with processed foods and vegetable oils, and that can increase your body's production of DGLA. Another reason might be that you're struggling with impaired enzyme functions. If you feel like, oh, my levels are too high, but I'm eating a very good diet, it might be because your enzyme function is not functioning correctly. So fatty acids in your body are metabolized by different enzymes. And if the enzymes aren't working properly due to genetics or nutritional deficiencies or inflammation, DGLA can get accumulated. And it can also be due to chronic inflammation. So conditions like arthritis, metabolic syndrome, or even low-grade chronic inflammation can disrupt your fatty acid metabolism, leading to elevated DGLA levels. And why would you have chronic inflammation? It might be due to leaky gut. It might be to lacking omega-3 in every single cell, causing your cells to have too many of the pro-inflammatory building blocks, making your cells not being in balance, which is then also affecting everything in your cells and in your body, the mitochondria, energy production, your hormone receptors. And if your hormone receptors are not functioning correctly too because of this chronic inflammation, the communication between the cells are not going to function. The next process that is supposed to happen when a hormone is attaching to the hormone receptors, it's not going to happen. So there is a lot of miscommunication in the body when there are systems that are not functioning properly. So I've seen that a lot. The people are low in omega-3 levels. They're usually very high in DGLA, even if it have nothing to do with each other per se, what you're eating. You can keep the same diet. And if you add omega-3, usually I see on the blood work that the DGLA levels also goes down. And it's very, very fascinating. And then the fourth thing is supplement use. So if you're taking supplements high in gamma-linolenic acid, the GLA, like evening primrose oil or borage oil, your DGLA levels might spike as a result. So why should you bother testing your DGLA levels, you might ask? And it's because it provides a window into your body's inflammatory balance. High levels can be a red flag for chronic inflammation, poor diet, and poor balance between omega-6 and omega-3. It can also be a sign of you needing a specific nutrients like zinc, magnesium, or vitamin B6 to optimize enzyme function. Because if your enzymes are not working, they need those vitamins and minerals to start functioning better. It can also be a sign of metabolic or hormonal imbalances that may affect your long-term health. So if you're testing it, it can give you clarity about your body's fatty acid profile. And more importantly, it allows you to take targeted action to rebalance and improve your health. So if you have high levels of DGLA, what can you do to reduce them? Well, the first step would be to cut omega-6 intake. Take away your chips while watching a TV show with your family. Take away soybean, corn, and sunflower oil, all the vegetable oils that you might have in your pantry or that you might eat when you are out eating at a restaurant. A lot of restaurants, even if it looks like they're cooking whole foods, they're often cooking it in vegetable oils. So it's important to just limit our intake with our omega-6, and even your healthy protein shake or protein bar after you have been working out might contain too high levels of omega-6. So you want to read the labels and avoid everything that have processed oils within them. The next thing you can do is to increase your omega-3 intake, but if you do a fatty acid profiling test, I would encourage you to not only measure the DGLA, but also measure your omega-3 index and omega-3 ratio to see where you are at there, so that you can know how much of an increasement you need of your omega-3 intake as well. I would love for everyone to be able to eat everything they need through fish and mussels and all different things from the ocean. But unfortunately, the toxic overload in our oceans is making it hard for us to eat enough. I was actually watching Tony Robbins just recently explain how he had got mercury poisoning from he was eating a very wholesome, healthy diet, mainly vegetables and fruit and fish. And he ended up with mercury poisoning. He had very weird symptoms, ended up at the doctor's office, and they were able to find that out. But because of the heavy metal overload, it might be good to add a high quality omega-3 that also contains extra virgin olive oil. And then the next thing you need to do is optimize enzyme function. You remember I told you the enzyme function needs zinc, magnesium, and vitamin B6. They're essential for the enzymes that processes omega-6 fats. So make sure you're getting enough through diet or through supplementation. Both zinc and magnesium are things that a lot of people are very low at. So for you to understand how the nutrients are absorbed in your body, I encourage you to go back to episode 16 to learn about the competing nutrients and how it can be hard to balance your intake, because there is a lot of nutrients that are using the same carriers. If we're only supplementing with one, even if you're eating sufficient levels in your diet of another nutrient, they may not be able to be absorbed because you might take up more of the other nutrient that you're supplementing with. So in order for you to understand the complexity around that, go back to episode 16, competing nutrients, understanding how nutrients share the same carriers in your body. So go back to that episode. And then it's important to address the inflammation. So focus on an anti-inflammatory diet rich in whole, unprocessed foods. And also incorporate lifestyle practices like regular exercise, stress management, and don't forget how important it is to sleep. We need to sleep, guys, so to be able to recover. And also address the leaky gut issue. If you're struggling with any autoimmune disease, it's usually linked to omega-3 deficiency and leaky gut in combination. And if you're struggling with leaky gut, it will keep on causing too big particles leak directly out in your bloodstream that will cause a lot of inflammation going on in your body.
And I would encourage you that you start out doing a test and then you do lifestyle changes and you might be changing a little bit about your nutritional intake. Maybe you add some stuff, maybe you take away some stuff. But then after 120 days, 6 months, 12 months, like check regularly where you are at so that you can measure how your diet is affecting your DGLA levels. I first learned about DGLA years ago while studying fatty acid metabolism. And I remember being fascinated by its dual role in both promoting and controlling inflammation. And since then, I've seen how understanding and addressing DGLA imbalances has transformed my clients' health. From reducing joint pain to improved skin condition, the results speaks for themselves. Another thing, high DGLA levels can be a sign of that I forgot to mention is the role of liver function, because your liver plays a crucial role in processing fatty acids, including DGLA. So poor liver function can actually disrupt this process in several ways. It can be the liver that is causing the enzyme issues as well, because a sluggish or dysfunctioning liver may hinder this conversion, leading to imbalances. Detoxification issues. The liver detoxifies harmful substances, including excess omega 6 fats. So, if you're having a poor detoxification, that can exacerbate omega 6 dominance, which then disrupt the balance between omega 3s and alter the DGLA levels. And I also have an episode where I'm talking about that the liver also need zinc, magnesium, and vitamin B6 because they're all critical cofactors for the enzymes involving the DGLA metabolism. And if you're having high or low levels of DGLA, a couple of other symptoms I forgot to mention as well is that not only can you experience excessive inflammation because it drives pro-inflammatory pathway and causing symptoms like joint pain, swelling, or skin flare-ups, and so on. And I already mentioned that you can feel very tired and struggle with fatigue. But the other thing I want to talk about is brain fog, because ongoing inflammation may impair cognitive function. So if you're struggling with brain fog, you might want to look into your DGLA levels as well. And also going back to the hormonal imbalances that you can experience, I forgot to say that if the DGLA is elevated, it might disrupt cortisol or estrogen balances. So that is the reason why you might struggle with having mood swings, for example, or irregular periods. But like I said, that you can have fatigue by having too much. You can also have fatigue by having too little. Some other clear symptoms are dry skin and also weakened immune function. So if you're having too low levels, that may impair your ability to fight infections. Also, if you're struggling with difficulty healing, if you have poor wound healing, or you're struggling to recover from injuries, it might be a result from insufficient anti-inflammatory prostaglandins. Yet again, it is a reason why we should look into these levels. And I found this so frustrating again because I have been looking at blood work to people that have been seeking help for many, many years. And despite its importance, DGLA testing is not common performed in standard medical practice. And a couple of reasons why is simply lack of awareness. Many physicians are unfamiliar with the critical role fatty acid like DGLA play in inflammation chronic disease. Also, the focus on symptoms. So, conventional medicine often treats symptoms rather than investigating the underlying biochemical imbalances. So, they are not looking at what is actually wrong. They're just looking at what symptom do you have and what other things are elevated because of this symptom. And then they're trying to treat that. And then it's also requiring specialized testing. So testing DGLA levels requires advanced lipid panels or red cell membrane analysis, which are not routinely ordered. With that being said, some progressive doctors and functional medicine practitioners are starting to recognize the importance of fatty acid testing. These pioneers use tools like red blood cell fatty acid analysis to get a complete picture of their patient's inflammatory balance. And I'm so happy every time I see it. And if you're out there right now and you're wanting to test for this and you're going to your provider and you're asking for it and they cannot provide it, a lot of the times too, a physician need to be able to explain to the insurance company why they would order a test like this. And a lot of the times, if they don't have the information or the knowledge why this is important, it's going to be hard for them to order a test it can be very pricey for them to order. It just depends on what laboratory they are using. One time I asked the doctor if they could do an omega ratio test. I brought the test with me. And he said, we could potentially do something like that, but the laboratory fee would be about $4,000 because we're sending it off to France. And that just blew my mind because the blood test I did the first time I did it, it was less than $170, including the laboratory fees. So I want to let you know that if you're out there and you want to test for this yourself, just know that you can order an at-home blood test to your house. You can prick your finger, you can send it off, and you can yourself get the results. And the results will show if you're high or if you're low or if you're within the range that is wanted. There is a couple of different omega-6 fatty acids. And something that can also be useful to know is that if you do a test like this and it comes back and you're perfectly levels in LA, you're perfectly good on the GDLA, but then you're high on the DGLA, it can be interesting to understand that you may not eat any of this. The body is converting different fatty acids to a new type. I've already been educated that when we're looking at omega-3, we know that ALA, that is the omega-3 that come from the plants, that can be converted to EPA, but it's a very low conversion rate. It's only about 5% of the ALA that can be converted to EPA. And then they can convert a lot of EPA to DHA. Sorry if I'm becoming very technical in this episode. And if you're struggling with understanding all of this, you're always welcome to get in my inbox on Facebook. I have a page called Food Changes Lives. Just send me a message there and I will be able to help you with this. When we're looking at the fatty acids of the omega-6 family, we have the linolenic acid, that is the LA, and that is the starting point. It's found in vegetable oils, nuts, and seeds, and pretty much everything that's growing. But then LA can be converted to GLA, and then GLA can be converted to DGLA. And then finally, the DGLA can be converted to arachidonic acid, the AA. So if your DGLA levels are high, but the AA levels are low, it does indicate a bottleneck at the delta 5 desaturase enzyme. And this could result from the different things I've already been talking with enzyme dysfunction due to genetic factors. It can be that you're lacking the different vitamins and minerals like zinc, magnesium, B6. And it can also be due to chronic inflammation, which suppress enzyme activity. So chronic inflammation can actually downgrade how able your enzymes are in your body. So you may not even lack the vitamins and minerals, but if your enzymes are not able to work the way they are supposed to due to chronic inflammation, that can also create that bottleneck. So what can then happen if we're able to balance our DGLA levels? Well, it can be a game changer. If you're struggling with your health, it can elevate chronic pain. It can improve skin conditions, support hormone regulations, and reduce the risk of disease like heart disease, diabetes, and Alzheimer's, according to science. So if you want to support your liver health, focus on detoxifying foods like cruciferous vegetables, garlic, and lemon. And then you can consider to supplement with something like milk thistle or NAC to support liver function. But there is a lot of different supplementations out there and different smoothies, and herbs is so good too. So you can just search for supporting liver detox and applying that to your own health regime if you feel like the liver is something you should focus a little bit extra on. And to be honest, most of us should. A lot of people have been eating way too much processed foods that gets accumulated in our body, that is affecting every single organ of our body, and everyone can benefit from a liver cleanse. And the National Institution of Health, you are going to be able to find an article regarding serum levels of DGLA are inversely associated with linolenic acid and total death in elderly patients with recent myocardial infarction. And this work was supported by grants from Sten Erik Hagen Foundation for Clinical Heart Research in Oslo, Norway. And many of these studies are showing very good benefits of having sufficient levels of DGLA. But of course, there's always a thing saying further studies are needed to confirm and extend our findings. But this study was very positive and were very clear in how they could see that if people were having too low levels of DGLA, that was associated with increased risk of total death in elderly patients with a recent MI. But there is a lot of studies out there, and I encourage you to just go out and do your research. It's very interesting. And if you do not understand a study, you can always do the trick of copying it, pasting it into your OpenAI and say, hey, explain this so a 5-year-old can understand this information. And they will be able to help you with that. Of course, you can pick any age. I'm just saying a low age to make it very easy to understand. And this study was made with 1,002 patients, and they were all between 70 and 82 years of age. It was 2 to 8 weeks after an MI, and then they followed them up after 2 years. So the conclusion from this study, after reviewing everything, was that low levels of DGLA were related to a higher LA to DGLA ratio and the risk of total death in elderly patients with recent MI. And it can also be that just having high levels of LI, so you're having a big ratio. We do know that linolenic acid is highly related to the cytokine storms in the body. We do know that a lot of people that struggled and may not have survived COVID, it was usually a very high cytokine storm reaction from the body's side. That is usually induced by having too high levels of LA. So it may not only be that the ratio between the DGLA and the LA is high, but it can also be that the LA is just normally high. I just saw that in the in this report, and I just wanted to say that it might be that also that is affecting the results. But they were clearly able to see it. And I would encourage you again to just go out, do research, and if your provider is not going to be able to help you, take the matter into your own hands and just order a blood test to just be able to see if this might be a missing part of your puzzle piece when you're aiming to create a body that is functioning as good as possible. Because when we're looking at health, the whole goal is to not live miserable the rest of our life, but we want to live as healthy as possible for as long as possible. And we want to be able to create those blue zones within our own family so that we can live together for a long period of time and be healthy and be well and experience life together and have the body that can have enough of energy to play with grandkids and travel the world. So understanding and addressing your DGLA levels is like unlocking a hidden key to your health. While it's not yet mainstream, the science is clear. Balancing this fatty acid can profoundly impact inflammation, hormonal health, and disease prevention. If you're ready to take the next step, seek out a practitioner who can guide you through personalized testing and dietary strategy. And I promise you that your body and your future self, they will thank you. Thank you once again for tuning into my podcast. And if you have heard about DGLA or if you have never heard about it, I would like to learn and collect some statistics over this. So if you have never heard about DGLA, please head over to the Food Changes Lives Facebook group. I have been trying to change that name, so it might be Body Hacking Build a Better You, but until I'm able to do it, it's probably Food Changes Lives. So head over there, and then I'm going to post this podcast episode in a post. So if you have never heard about DGLA, please go there and comment below the post, or you can just send me a fan email right here, and I would really appreciate it. And if you're new to my podcast and you found this episode valuable, please go and consider giving it a 5-star review and leaving a cute message. And maybe you're one of the happy winners of a blood test that can measure the DGLA. Because yes, I feel like it's time for a giveaway again. So comment, message me, and maybe I'll pick you to win a blood test that can measure this. Thank you so much for being here. I'm Michaela Morell. Bye-bye. Hey guys, if you enjoyed today's episode, I encourage you to do one thing for me. Think of one person you want to share this podcast with and copy the link and send it right away. Thanks for playing an important role in the Blue Zone community. And if you want to keep on building a better you, one essential building block at a time, hit that subscribe button. See you in the next episode.